We have breaking news here the day before the NBA draft. According to our Charania, Boston, Atlanta, and Brooklyn, they finalizing a 3-team trade. It sends Kristaps, Porzingis and a second-round pick to the Hawks, Terrence Mann and Atlanta's 22 pick to the Nets, and George Niang and a second-rounder to the Boston Celtics. Of course, Kristaps Porzingis being traded away, a key piece of this championship team, is the headline of this, Bobby Marks. Can you just distill this down to what exactly is Boston, essentially a year removed from a championship, trying to do here?
Remember, they were projected to have a $500 million payroll going into this offseason. That is basically sliced in half. They save $180 million. They go under the second apron. It is basically a reset of the roster. Now, the big question is going to be, what happens with Jaylen Brown, right? He is the last. Him and Derek White are the two core players that are still there. Jrue Holiday out, Kristaps Porzingis out. What does it mean to the future of Jaylen Brown moving forward?
It feels like there's a clear delineation in the Eastern Conference right now. You have the Milwaukee Bucks hampered with injuries. You have the Indiana Pacers hampered with injuries to their star players, the Boston Celtics, and now there are other teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers, for instance, the Orlando Magic, who are trying to make those moves to be a win now in the Eastern Conference team. Even Jrue Holiday being traded away from the Boston Celtics. In the West, however, Shams, it is a arms race. The Houston Rockets, already the #2 team this past season, acquire Kevin Durant here. What do you think is the most important thing to know 2 days later?
Malika, the Rockets believe this is the right fit at the right time. This is a clear win now move for this team. I was talking to someone around the Rockets today, and it's about the fact that in the playoffs now, they know they have a go-to #1 option on any given night, any given moment of the game. And listen, at the end of the day, the Rockets were the most aggressive at the end to get a deal done. They had the best offer to get a deal done. When you think about a 23-year-old scorer in Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, two-way player, and then that number 10 overall pick, a very valuable one in this draft, a deep draft. The market had just become limited for Kevin Durant for a couple reasons. One, there are only a couple teams that were ready with multiple salaried players that they would be allowed to send and still remain a championship contending type team, which Houston feels that is. They still have a lot of their core players that they feel will help them. And the other point, Kevin Durant turns 37 years old in September. He's on an expiring contract, $57 million, and so that gave him an amount of leverage in terms of his future as well.
Perk, I know you like the fact that the Houston Rockets didn't have to give up a ton in order to get Kevin Durant, but do you think, I mean, the standard is set by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Does this put Houston in the same stratosphere?
Absolutely it does, and make no mistake about it, Kevin Durant is not a Rocket if Ime Udoka is not the coach. Right, it's about the respect that he have for Ime Udoka, along with a good friend of his, the assistant coach Royal Ivy as well. But when you think about what they gave up, they didn't give up much, right? They was able to keep Amen Thompson, who I believe in the next 2 or 3 years could possibly be the best two-way player in the game, right? You were able to keep Baby Jokic and Şengün. We saw the leap that he took this season, right? And then you throw in Tari Eason and also Cam Whitmore. In our league, where the most important position is the wing position. We just saw it in the NBA Finals. You need defensive stoppers. So you figure out the thing, what's going on with Fred VanVleet, get him back under contract. You got big Steven Adams down there banging down low, offensive rebounding, setting hard screens. And now all of a sudden you got your closer and you address another problem which they had this season, one of the worst three-point shooting teams. You bring in KD, who's efficient from the three-point line.
It feels like down the stretch of those playoff games against the Golden State Warriors, they didn't have a go-to guy to get them a bucket. Now they certainly do in Kevin Durant. On the Phoenix side of this, they get back into the draft. That was incredibly important for this Phoenix Suns team, but it feels like if they want to continue to retool around Devin Booker, they can't be done.
No, they can't be done. I think we're going to keep an eye on what happens with Bradley Beal. He's owed $110 million over the next 2 years. Is there a pathway to get off that money, or at least part of that money here? Because you added Jalen Green, you added Dylan Brooks, you are basically the under 6'7" club. I think there's a priority for one of them to get a center. Remember, this is an ownership group that said we are not rebuilding this roster. We are going to retool this roster here. So Phoenix at 10 is going to be interesting. At 29 also, 2 picks in the second round.
Well, Bobby, don't Bill have to say yes?
He sure does.
No trade, right?
He sure does. I mean, they can waive him outright, but not without taking a buyout there.
Is that a real possibility?
He has to. You don't take a buyout unless you have a home. So what is the home going to be? Can he get a $14 million in the open market?
Right.
That's going to be a big ask there.
Well, while you were sleeping, a very consequential trade The Celtics are sending Jrue Holiday to Portland for Anthony Simons and 2 second-round draft picks. Simons joins Boston on an expiring contract, while the 35-year-old Holiday is owed $72 million across the next 2 seasons. Let's start with the man behind all the NBA money, and that's our Bobby Marks. Wendy had told us yesterday, or actually last week, you said the thing to start watching is, does Boston start selling off pieces? This obviously is the beginning of that.
Yeah, the most important thing to know is where they were with the second apron. And the second apron is a punitive restriction, the inability to make trades. They were roughly $22 million over the second apron. Chip away, chip away, chip away. This gets them to $18 million in the Jrue Holiday trade. You get back an expiring contract in Anthony Simons. You shed the $72 million owed to Holiday in years 3 and 4. And now it puts you in position, whether it be a Kristaps Porzingis potential trade on an expiring contract or another move to basically shed that salary. We're looking potentially at Boston saving potentially $200 million when we get through the next few weeks here. So it's a significant move for the Celtics. It's certainly a significant move for the Trailblazers as far as how both teams were able to get a deal done.
And under new ownership in Boston as well. Go ahead, Wendy.
We've got this fascinating thing happening in the NBA right now where these Western Conference teams are clawing each other's eyes out, trying to get to 8th or 9th or 10th place. This is a move that takes on $100 million for the Blazers, trying to see if they can get to 10th. And in the Eastern Conference, you have really good teams that are dealing with the fallout of this Achilles tendon problem, who are trying to rip off pieces because they realize that they can't be so expensive if they're not going to be real contenders next year. We've already seen a couple of deals that look like this. Keep a very close eye on Boston in the next few days, and Indiana and Milwaukee, teams that are dealing with these Achilles tendon problems.
Let's live in Boston for a minute. They've traded off Holiday. I'm thinking of 3 names. I'm thinking of Kristaps Porzingis. I'm thinking of Derek White. And dare I say, I'm thinking of Jaylen Brown. Could we see anything with those 3 guys?
Porzingis, I definitely think that they are in discussions with. And again, you can't just trade him off. It would be trading him for a player probably who makes less money. That's what this was. Anthony Simons kind of fits what Boston does. He's a 3-point specialist. They would need someone to sort of be a big man, starting level big man for Porzingis if they made this deal, at least at the end of it. But look for a Porzingis thing. As for the other 2-star players, I don't think Derek White and Jaylen Brown are players that they want to trade. Having said that, if somebody calls with a gigantic offer, I think that they would have to discuss it. I think they'd be looking at their other supporting players, maybe like a Sam Hauser, that they would be looking to do. But as Bobby described, they probably are going to have to make multiple more moves to save this money that they need to save.
I get it. And the money is interesting and it's important, but from the fans' perspective, it's the names that we're talking about here. So, Markeith, what do you think? They're going to be without, we would assume, like, these are all assumptions we're making, but I think they're reasonable. They're going to play a year without Jason Tatum, right? That's just what they're looking at here. But then they're going to get him back, and they're going to want to be right back in the middle of the championship conversation. So it's a kind of a complicated little line to walk here, Markeith. Would you, if you were the Celtics, consider going full rebuild and trading Jaylen Brown?
I would not, Greeny. I would take my time with this thing, right? I would start off with the contract shedding to try to get under the salary cap and the tax, because we've been living over the tax the last couple of years. And then I would get some complementary pieces that I would think that I would give out a chance to try to fit around Jaylen Brown, right? Because this year for Jaylen Brown will be the coming out year, the year that shows that he's a true #1 option in this league, right? If you ask me, he might just, being running for most improved, he might just be running for MVP with the reins he will have and being able to lead a team for the first time in his career, right? But no, I wouldn't shed the team. I would get a couple pieces, put around him. I think this Anthony Simons piece is a real big deal because, he's a great scorer in the West, so he's going to be able to come to a team that's all about winning now because he's been a part of a team that lost so much. So he's going to find, how he truly is as a professional, and can he help this team actually win? And it's all predicated based on what's going to happen the following year. So if he fits this team this year, then he'll be a big piece the following year to come when Jason Tatum is back.
The Jaylen Brown of it is interesting to me. I go back to the 90s when Michael Jordan retired the first time. The world wrote off the Bulls. Well, that's it, they're done. The 93-94 season, I will go to my grave saying Scottie Pippen should have been the MVP of the league. that year. I still can't believe he didn't win MVP that year. They had a terrific season. They took the Knicks 7 heartbreaking games, a controversial call, all that stuff. Scottie Pippen really demonstrated he was more than just the Robin to Michael's Batman. It'll be interesting to see what Jaylen Brown's season is like without Tatum.
This is the new reality in the NBA. Is Jaylen Brown an excellent player? Yes, absolutely. Is he a $300 million player? That's where you get into some things. And so when you look at Jaylen Brown, a player who's just had knee surgery, they think he's going to be back and be fine, who makes $300 million. I'm not sure the value is there for the Celtics, even if they wanted to trade him. So I don't think that's something they're looking at.
The goal, and it's similar to, we're going to rewind the clock with Chicago, and it's almost like Jordan is Jason Tatum.
Right.
It's similar. How do you reset the roster? This is kind of a gap year right now, and then when Tatum returns, you have different pieces around him, and one of them certainly could still be Jaylen Brown here. In a perfect world, you'd love to be where Dallas was this past year, where you're a team that competes to maybe get into play-in, and then all of a sudden, the night of the lottery, you get a little lottery luck, and then you get a top pick to add to that roster that already is there. But you've got to have the pieces when Jason Tatum gets back healthy.
Realized yesterday regarding Tyrese Halliburton, we all saw it, the torn Achilles, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, playing through a calf strain. It was confirmed as the torn Achilles we suspected it would be. The injury cut short one of the most remarkable individual playoff runs ever, one in which Halliburton hit a tying or winning shot in the final seconds in all 4 rounds of the playoffs, and his team won 15 games. Around 11 o'clock Eastern time last night, Tyrese Halliburton released this post. It is really interesting and emotional and honest, and I recommend you read all of it. The part of it that we picked out here is when he writes, "Honestly, right now, torn Achilles and all, I don't regret it. I would do it again and again after that to fight for this city and my brothers, for the chance to do something special. Indy, I'm sorry. If any fan base doesn't deserve this, it's y'all. But together, we are going to fight like hell to get back to this very spot and get over this hurdle." There's so many things about this that are interesting, but I want to start with the player in the conversation. Markeith, there is a mentality that you guys understand that maybe we mere mortals can't fully understand. When you hear Halliburton lying in a hospital bed saying that he's unable to feel his foot, saying he would do it again if given the chance, what goes through your mind?
What goes through my mind first is, is just taking back the journey of being a little kid, having these moments in your head, watching these games as a kid and saying, I will be on that stage at one point in my career, right? And then actually finally getting there. And then something like the injury, the first injury happened, you have a decision to make rather, this is your dream. Like, this is what we all work so hard to get to, and now we're finally here, right? And I'm leaning on the side of him saying, like, I wouldn't change anything because I gave everything I had, right? You seen me go out with an injury, but you know that I played through something to be here, right? Just set an example for the players that come, right? Just, you're at the mountaintop. You have to give everything you got, and sometimes it doesn't fall in your way, but, you did what you could to get there, and that's the type of feeling that you want to have out of a player, right? And like I said, Tyrese, he gave everything he had, and, as a player, that's all we really can do.
I'm going to get the football guys in on this conversation later this morning as well. I just think it's such an interesting moment of psychology there. Having said that, let's put the ESPN bet odds up, okay? At 838, Indiana was the second favorite last week to win next year's championship, behind only OKC. Now with all of these injuries, look at where things have tumbled. Look at the Cavaliers. This is the Eastern Conference. It's Cleveland, followed by the Knicks, followed by Orlando. Don't overlook Philadelphia, who's suddenly a team that's never healthy, feels like it's one of the healthier teams in the group. Windman, what are we looking at in the Eastern Conference right now? Okay, well, a few things here. Cleveland is headed for the second apron starting next week. They have a couple of role-playing free agents, including Ty Jerome. I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep, okay? So they may take a little bit of a step back on their overall depth. The Knicks, however, because of Jalen Brunson and his willingness to take less than he absolutely could have taken, are below the apron and are actually in position, after they hire a head coach, that they could actually add to their roster a little bit. I'm not saying that they would make a major move, but the Knicks are in position to maybe marginally improve their roster and improve their depth, whereas the Cavs, I think, are in danger of taking a bit of a hit. So we may recalculate that in another 7 to 10 days, and you may have the Knicks at the top.
It's amazing. The top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference when the playoffs started, the last team standing right now is the New York Knicks because they haven't done anything. They're just healthy here. And when you look at Cleveland, the Darius Garland injury, he's going to be out an extended period of time. Can they sign Ty Jerome? I don't even know if I would put Philadelphia. I don't trust the Sixers at all as far as what's going to happen with Joel Embiid. And Orlando, as great as the move they made, we don't know anything about them. They haven't been able to get past the first round. So for right now, yes, of course, they got to hire the coach. That's the most important thing, but they've got their top 7 players all in their contract for next year.
Hey, what's up, guys? Jag from Jaggy Sports here. And yes, congratulations to the OKC Thunder. You guys are champs. Get well soon to Tyrese Halliburton. Devastating injury, but you know, he's going to be out for the next year, so get well soon. And congratulations to Kevin Durant. He landed on his wish list, which was the Houston Rockets. I've never seen that where a big trade happens on the day of Game 7. Crazy, right? So now that has transpired. Moving forward, last night was pretty crazy because I did not anticipate any trades to happen until after NBA draft or a little bit after free agency. Now, last night, Jrue Holiday got traded back to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons and, you know, picks here and there kind of thing. Also, just happened today, KCP got traded to Atlanta Hawks. Brad Stevens, obviously urged by the new owners, was basically trying to cut costs. And because of the 2 moves that he just did, he just reduced it by $180 million. So kudos to Brad Stevens. 100% kudos to Brad Stevens. However, is Brad Stevens done? We don't know. But the rumor is, this is just a rumor. I'm not like, you know, just guessing here. The rumor is that there are a number of teams with significant interest in one Jaylen Brown. Now, Jaylen Brown is owed $70 million or whatever, 66, doesn't make a difference, is a lot of money. He's owed that much money for the next few years per. Now, with Jason Tatum out for a year, and now you don't have KCP, you don't have Jrue Holiday, they're not really tanking, but they're not really contending either. Recognizing that, does Brad Stevens trade away one Jaylen Brown? And let's not stop there. Jaylen Brown would covet a number of assets in a trade. The teams with the most amount of assets, and you didn't get anything, or you didn't give away anything that much in the Kevin Durant deal, Houston still has a lot of assets to give up. So does San Antonio, the Dallas teams. So does the Brooklyn Nets, right? So do the Indiana Pacers. So what do you do? Because this is a tricky situation, and you know Boston is a seller right now because they're interested, they're listening. So we just have to wait and find out. But the rumor is that a lot of teams with significant interest in Jaylen Brown. Now, why do I have one Giannis picture up there? Is because that, you know, he still can get traded. He basically said he wants to see what the Bucks do in the first 2 weeks. So I don't anticipate nothing, like, you know, nothing's going to happen in the first 2 weeks of free agency that much, because teams are going to be waiting with assets. We're talking about San Antonio. We're talking about Houston. We're talking about Indiana, we're talking about Brooklyn. I'm sure there's a couple other here and there. But those teams are going to be lining up for Giannis if he decides that he wants to be traded, right? So If Luka Doncic can get traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the LA Lakers, anything's possible. 100% anything's possible. So where's Giannis gonna go? We don't know. Where's Jaylen Brown gonna go? We don't know. Right? This is the most craziest offseason that is about to happen. Trades. Tell me what you guys think. Leave a comment in the comment section. Where's Jaylen Brown gonna go? Where's Giannis gonna go? And who is gonna make the next big move? Because it's gonna happen. Like, we've already witnessed it starting Sunday, so it's definitely gonna happen. Leave a comment in the comment section. As always, Jag from Jaggy Sports.